threefold increase in milk production from 17 million ton in 51 to 231 million ton. Quite big jump. And again, this increase of total production has not come because of more number of animals. No, not by increasing number of animals. Number of animals is increased, but then it is mainly because of increase in productivity per animal, and that's how the whole production has gone up. As I said in the morning, fisheries sector is one of the sunrise sectors of this country. This sector is growing at a rate of 8 to 10% for last around 10-12 years, and there is 23-fold increase in fisheries sector compared to 1950. And there are, of course, several very good examples of new breeds of fisheries, new technologies, and several other kinds of things which have contributed for this. Horticulture is, of course, again, a very bright sector, increasing at a rate of more than 5%, and total production is more than 355 million tons in the last year. Indian spices have been always very, very popular. You know, many of the invaders came to this country because of the spices. That sector is still doing good, giving a lot of impetus to other sectors as well. All the time we talk about mechanization, and this is the numbers of tractors. So India is now the world leader in tractor manufacturing as well as export. And you can see the jump since 2000, almost quite stiff jump in number of tractors which we are manufacturing every year. This is the number which I was mentioning today, that the agriculture as a whole is growing at a rate of 3.7% per year. But then most of the growth is coming from horticulture, livestock, and fisheries. Crop sector is still 2%, 1.9 to 2.1%. But then annual growth rate is currently 3.7%. And if you compare the growth for last few decades, starting from 1980, so 80s decade, 90s decade, 2000 decades, and then later on, you will find that the last 10 years have given the highest growth rate, 3.7%. Earlier, we used to think that agriculture cannot grow more than 2.5 or 3%. But now it is growing at a rate of 3.7%. And probably in this year and next year, the number even could increase. So this is happening. One brilliant example of rice, and again, Datta and many other rice scientists are wishing you are here. This is the growth of rice sector globally in last 10 years. Most of the countries are just lagging behind. -1, -8, -7. India's growth is quite impressive, 30%. This is again kind of example in this particular sector. Not only that, the total productivity and production are increasing, but Indian agriculture, though we may not like to accept it, but this is a fact. Irrespective of changing climate, irrespective of several aberrations happening in climate as well as several other forms, pollution and all kinds of degradations and everything, Indian agriculture has become a little bit more resilient to changing climate. Earlier, say 15-20 years back, if there would have been slight change in the monsoon rain, the total production would go down. In the last 4-5 years, if you compare, though there has been aberrations in monsoon rain, though there has been terminal heat during harvesting of wheat and so on, but total production has not gone down, rather it has increased. How it is happening? Because of technologies, because of several other inputs which we are using. So that is having a kind of cascading effect. So as a result, the country, all of you know, which was a net importer, but since 1991, it is now net exporter for agri-commodities. And of course, every year our export is increasing. If you take the figure of 2022-23, this country exported more than 53 billion US dollars. And again, another example of rice. Some of you like rice a little bit more compared to others. You can see that the export of Indian rice is far away, much higher compared to many other countries, including Thailand, Vietnam, and so on. So this is what is happening. And for all of this, agriculture education, new science, new technologies, capacity building, training, certainly have played a crucial role. Otherwise, all of these achievements sustained for so many decades would never be possible. It is not aberration. It is not just for 1 year and the next year again we are back to the basics. No, it's not like that. It is sustaining. That means there is some significant and impressive change. Now let's come to agriculture education in this country. What is the current status of agri education? Currently, we have got 77 agriculture universities in the country. We have got 41 SAUs, 3 central universities, 15 veterinary universities, 7 horticulture, 3 fisheries, 4 universities with agriculture faculties like Banaras Hindu University. Though not agriculture university, but it has got faculty of agriculture. And then of course we have got 4 deemed universities, all of you know, IRI, NDRI, IBRI, CIFE, Mumbai. So this is the whole structure. We run 80 PhD programs in all of these universities, 95 PG programs and 11 UG programs in all of this. But this is in the public sector, in the government sector. Besides this, a large number of universities are now there in the private sector. We have got 157 universities where agriculture is taught and the students get degree. Number of private colleges affiliated to agriculture universities is 102. And annual intake of students in these universities vary from around 120 to sometimes even more than 360 or so. So this is the infrastructure of education which we have got now. In general, we produce around 1 lakh students, agricultural graduates every year. So we have got around 37,000 UG in the public system, 30,000 UG students, 15,000 PG, around 5,000 PhD, and in private system, 45,000 to another 50,000. So overall 95,000 to 1 lakh students are getting degree in agriculture. But then if you compare with other universities, in terms of number of universities, we have got 9% of all universities are agricultural universities. So we have got 9% of all universities in agriculture, 9%, quite significant, nearing 10%. But we enroll only 1% of all students. So we have got 9% of universities, but enrolling only 1% of students. So there is a big gap. And Government of India almost every day tell us that you have got 9% of the universities, but you are teaching only 1% of the students. Why don't you increase the numbers and so on? What? Because others are increasing their numbers. So this is the number of students. But in this one, I wanted to show how our universities are structured, their resources, their staff, and so on. So we have got universities having less than 100 faculty members. And also we have got universities with more than 600 faculty members. And of course, all others are in between. So 100 to more than 600. In terms of budget, we have got universities with less than 100 crore budget. And of course, we have got universities which are having more than 600 crore per year budget. So there are all kinds of variations in these universities. Similar kind of variations are also there in terms of competency of our faculty members. This was a survey done sometimes back in 22 rather. The report and the paper was published by us in 2023 that overall the faculty members are quite competent. But then if you go on getting a little bit more information, you will find that 75% of our faculty members are quite strong theoretically. So they are strong theoretically. But then when you go for orienting students on business acumen, that percentage is quite small. Our faculty members are not that competent to guide our students going for business. Similarly, communication skill, practical subjects, orienting students on personality development and skills. So there are still lots of gaps and lots of improvements can be achieved there. So this is the current structure. Now let's see what is the changing landscape of agriculture education in this country. Agriculture education landscape is really changing, and I shall give you a few examples of that. Of course, first one is changing teaching learning process itself is. So we started something like this, Guru Shishya Parampara, and then all kinds of things starting very old days, and then then came classroom, and then seminars, conferences, and of course now something like this. It is not that something is going to happen after 10 years. It's already happening. It's already happening, and maybe after AI, I don't know what is going to happen. So this is a very big change in the teaching learning process itself. Changing every business landscape. This is another important aspect of agri education. So earlier the driver was productivity increase, how to increase productivity. But now the driver is market. Or maybe in future the driver is going to be market, not productivity alone. Input source, earlier retail shop, in future it is going to be online shop. Equipment traditional, but now it is going to be automated. Supply chain, physical, paper-based, but now it is digital. And of course, after 10, 11 years, we find it is almost everything is going to be digital. Credit source, money lenders, agents, but now it is agri fintech companies and of course digital. I don't know how many of you are still carrying your cash, hard cash or so. Hopefully not. Marketing is mainly hard and of course online platform and so on. So all this landscape is changing. We also did one survey that what is the gap in number of agri graduates which are required and which we are producing. And you will find there is a big gap. Even 2020-25, around 43% gap. Gap means the market needs these many graduates, but we are producing quite less, so 53% gap. Now the question is then why our students do not, or who are doing that job then? Many agricultural jobs are being done by non-agricultural graduates. Many. Which our agri graduates can certainly get and they can do a better job because they are trained in agriculture. And of course, as we go, our plan is to reduce this gap. To reduce the gap so that agri graduates will be doing the jobs which are related to agriculture. We also analyze that which of the subjects are going to be more attractive in terms of job orientation and so on. And again, you can find that around 80% of total demand will be for top 5 streams: agriculture, veterinary, horticulture, agri engineering, and agri business management. So these are some of the things. Probably some of the very traditional kinds of subjects will not be so attractive. And demand of UG has the maximum, 72% share in total demand than PG and PhD. These are very strong forecasting rather that the demand in the market are going to be more for UG students, not for PG or PhD students. So our universities really need to think about it while imparting information. Along with this, the whole paradigm of constraints are also changing. So changing challenges. All of you know, high cost of production, low input use efficiency, limited post-harvest processing, low value addition, degradation of soil, depleting water sources, increasing pest and diseases, huge loss of food, high volatility, and of course climate degrees. So these are all the challenges and we have to address all these challenges through our education. Climate change, all of you know very well, 2024 was the warmest year in the record. We used to talk about 1.5 degree, that it should not be crossing 1.5 degrees centigrade, but now it has already crossed. Another point which you said, we should not cross 2 degrees centigrade, but then people say is now almost for sure that in the next 15-20 years, you are going to cross 2 degrees. Our target was that we shall restrict it by the end of this century. But that end of the century is going to be in maybe by 55 or 60 or so. So this is happening. Changing agri education landscape itself is also, there are lots of changes. So our farming is now going to be mechanized, intensive. So farming is going to be mechanized, knowledge intensive. But on the other side, our farmers are getting old. And that scenario, you can go to any village and you will find that many of the farmers are quite old because the young people have left their villages. So it has been left to the old people. And those young people who will be doing agriculture, they are going to be educated. So not totally illiterate. So if you have to engage those youth in agriculture, you have to come out with some kind of solution which will be suitable for an educated person, not for an illiterate person. Consumers are now more quality oriented, nature friendly oriented. Students, again, this is another big change. Those who visit agriculture universities and interact with students, even Yeah, 10, 15 years ago, most of agri students used to come from rural areas, from farming background. But now, in almost every university, most of the students are coming from urban background. They really do not have basic knowledge of agriculture because they have not grown up in farms. They have not seen how rice or wheat is grown. They do not see how animals are reared. So this is another big challenge for the universities and of course the teachers. Science is also now digital, efficient. Job is going to be private. We cannot expect that government will be able to provide a good number of jobs. So this is going to be a big change. Those also could be for short period. So permanent job, probably that era is going to be over very soon, or either short term or medium term. And pedagogy will be virtual, MOOCs, artificial intelligence based, and those kinds of things are going to happen. So this is the changing paradigms. So with all these challenges, with all these changing paradigms of agri education, here are our aspirations. Aspirations for Viksit Bharat. We need to increase the production up to this, from 332 million tons of food grains to more than 520 million tons. Horticulture, rice, wheat, meat, milk. In every area we find that still there is a big gap and there is a long way to go to reach all these numbers in next 20, 22 years or so, to have this Viksit Bharat. So we really need to transform agri-food system. We need to transform agri-food system because population is still increasing, so more population, less of resources, less of water, less of fertile soil, less of other inputs. Therefore, we have to have better and better technologies, better and better science, better and better productivity, so that we will be having better production, we will be having better nutrition, better environment, and of course, better life. So to have all this better, your agri education needs transformation. The agri-food system needs transformation. And when you talk of transforming agriculture, I said these 5 friends agriculture now should have. Now agriculture should be science and technology friendly. It's already there. We have to intensify that. It has to be nature friendly. You cannot ignore nature anymore. If you are developing a technology which is going to cause any harm in the nature, then certainly people are not going to accept that. It has to be nature friendly. It has to be market friendly. It has to be market friendly, gender and youth friendly, because they are the ones who are going to do agriculture. And then, of course, it also has to be culture friendly. You cannot bring in something which is not accommodating with our culture. So, therefore, we have to manage the resources in a totally different way. We all talk about genetic resources management, lots of new varieties, climate resilient, biofortified, high yielding, and so on, that will continue with new technologies. But we also need to have social resources management or socio-economic resources management. And these two will be based on natural resources management. So it's not only GRM anymore, it has to be along with SRM and also NRM. So all these RMs need to be included over there. So keeping all of these things in mind, I would suggest 10 thrust areas on which agri education in this country should now be going on. This is of course the strength, weakness, opportunities and threats of agri education. We have got good staff, very competitive students, even now also we get first grade students. We have got history of success, but again you know the weaknesses. We have got the opportunities like policies and so on, changing aspirations, but there are threats as well. So this is something which we need to keep in mind. So the first thrust area to have a roadmap for agri education in this country. Agri education should now be for agri food system, not only for one. So single crop system should now be transforming itself into agri food system. So when you say agri food system, it is not only crop yield or disease or something, but then growing, before growing and after growing. Pre-sowing, sowing till harvesting, and then after harvesting, all these 3 scenarios and all these 3 phases of agriculture need to be taught in the universities. Somehow we are still bogged with only production phase of the crop. sow the seed, harvest it, and then harvest. Before sowing, from where the seed is coming, from where the inputs are coming, this also very important. After harvesting, what you are going to do? Market, processing, value addition. So this entirety of this, at least all these three phases, we need to inculcate, internalize in our post curricula, in our education. Agri education for consumers and industry. So far, we are only thinking about the producers. Producers are important, farmers are important. But now you have to produce something which will be liked by the consumers. You have to produce something which will be also appreciated by the industry. So agri education should include consumers, industry, and of course the producers. So this is the second aspect. Third one is agri education for farmers and input suppliers. Not only for agri graduates, for input suppliers, for farmers, how our students will go and interact with them, how they will work with them. So this is the third one, so knowledge and skill to help the farmers. Expertise in handling machines, giving prescriptions and so on. We are really very poor on this aspect. We teach entire things about a tractor. But then if you ask a student to do a small requirement in any small part of the tractor, nobody knows. Policy partnerships, all these five need to come together to achieve the aspirations of Viksit Bharat, to transform agri education system. Thank you very much for giving your questions. Thank you all for your, thank you very much.